लैपटॉप ऑन हो गया? हाँ सर आपका बैठो सर आपका बैठो हाँ बस कोई मैं सर आपका बैठो सर आपका
इतना ज़्यादा नहीं है।
दो नंबर पे दो
हेलो
दो पे
हेलो हेलो हेलो
वही मैं भी देख रहा
इसको बंद कर
हेलो हेलो
उसमें रेशियो सही कर दिया था
हेलो
9
हेलो
अपने आप ही हो जाता ना। वो अपने आप ही हो जाता। एक 5 यहीं से हो रहा है तो होएगा ही वैसे अच्छा वो चल रहा है स्ट्रीम लैब चल रहा है स्ट्रीम लैब करती है तो स्ट्रीम लैब स्ट्रीम लैब जैसे गेमिंग सारे बड़े बड़े स्ट्रीम लैब से बड़े चलता है ये चलना चाहिए नहीं विराट को अगर बोलने का सामान तो
thought they were the visionary leaders. They once thought that India will be the pharmacy for the globe. And post-COVID, we can see that it has happened actually. Coming to Lupin, as far as the financial capital concerned, we are the $4.4 billion company as far as the market cap is concerned. We have a revenue of $2.2 billion and with an EBITDA of $111 million. As far as our business stake and split is concerned, we have about 36% of our business in North America and USA. I mean, the business was more, but last couple of years had not been that great in US. But otherwise, we have a very, very significant business in North America. India business has overcome the US business. We have a 38% of the total business presence as far as our whole globe is concerned. Then we have the rest of the world, as well as we are very strong in Europe, as well as we have also started doing business in the different parts. As far as our presence is concerned, we have 15 manufacturing units. We have 7 R&Ds across. When it comes to our rank, we are the 10th largest generic company in the globe. We are the 6th largest Indian company by sales. We are the 3rd largest Indian company in US by prescriptions, and with the 6th largest pharma market as far as the pharma market is concerned. Coming to our manufacturing and R&D units, we have a diverse global presence. As I was just discussing yesterday, we have our presence in more than 100 countries, where we have our 23 countries we have directly, we have an operations, and 7 countries with the subsidiaries. Coming to our 15 manufacturing units, we have our 12 manufacturing, we are US FDA approved. And of course, we have a 30 billion plus extended capacity for productions. Coming to Lupin's awards and accolades, our CEO, Vinita Gupta, named the most powerful woman in the business India by the Fortune India. We have awarded the master. We have awarded the Master of Risk Pharma and Healthcare in Indian Risk Management Awards. We look in also ranked #1 in biotech and pharma to be in the great place to work for 2019 and 20. I'm very pleased to announce that we have the minimum attrition rate as per the of the Indian standard. You can guess that Lupin has been the first company and I'm there in the company for the last 29 years. So most of the people who are there in this group of Lupin, they all have been associated with Lupin for last, at least their tenure is minimum 15 years plus. So that's, we are very proud to say that the environment is pretty different from the rest of the world. Lupin has the best researchers of the year. Coming to the Indian research formulations business, we have, we are going faster than the market. We have also gained our market share. Our therapy contribution, when it comes to therapy contributions, we have a major presence in cardio, diabetes as well as in respiratory. Cardio, diabetes leads with 23% and 21%, but we are, and respiratory we started late. But then after the whole respiratory is concerned, but then we have 14% contribution comes from there. Coming to the EV, of course, we are the global leader across the board. We are 90% of the EV perform record of building mega brands in the respiratory. There are certain brands which are within the first 100 brands of the industry. And we are the only company which has built the artificial intelligence that we bought for the patients in the respiratory segment. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
ठीक है कोई प्रॉब्लम आएगी तो बताता हूँ सर वही बता रहा है मैंने फोटो शेयर कर दे सर फोटो खींची हुई ना फोटो शेयर कर दे ठीक है
already done with the session on content for videos. Can I have your laptop please?
वो बैंडविच लो हो रहा है तो वो प्रेस कर दे रहा फिर वो बनाना पड़ा
लैपटॉप please. So, as you are done with conventional videos, now we are here with the session 3 that going ahead with the radio for videos.
आप चेक करो
To chair the session, we have, I call sir the Vijay Pitama of respiratory medicine. That's my professor, my head. And whatever I am today is because of Sir Dr. Rajiv Goyal. So he'll be chairing the first chair for the session. We have Dr. Manoj Goyal. Dr. Rajiv Goyal says, as you are very well known, is the director of the Department of Respiratory Medicine. Dr. Golden and Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute. We have Dr. Manoj Goyal sir, who has already introduced his director.
आपके वाले लैपटॉप को सबको सही
And we have Dr. Pratapi
से यूट्यूब पे लाइव कर रहा हूँ
like you to introduce the first speaker and the topic, which is radio spoken. Over to you, Chair.
आप ही का चल रहा है सर कनेक्टिविटी प्रॉब्लम है
So, welcome to this session for Vision Pro features, which is for localization of picture vision. And within this, we have
लैपटॉप से प्रॉब्लम हो रही है यहाँ से
talking about data storage and nuts and bolts. And concerns consulted in the
वहाँ से प्रॉब्लम हो रही है सर तो वही देख पाएंगे ना सर का लैपटॉप आ गया सर का लैपटॉप
lots of experience, one of the public publications, lot of academic achievements done by European Respiratory Society, Journal of Academy of Health Sciences. It's got huge interest in commercial terminology and one of the pioneers in commercial terminology in the country. So that's what I think.
Good afternoon to one and all, and thank you, Dr. Goyal.
So just for your information, he ran 6 kilometers in the morning to Missouri and came back home. So he's a very avid, athlete.
Okay, I hope there is that same interaction is there going forward during the lecture also. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for the invite to your So over the next 15 minutes or so, we'll look at how you go about doing EBUS and what are the accessories and what is the equipment that is there. I'm not just to that. I see that Dr. Dharmesh, who is the vehement person opposing this procedure, has decided to skip the session, and I take it that he has surrendered to the fact that regular EBUS is here to stay. So the agenda is to look at the hardware and what are the accessories that are there, and there are some few tips and tricks that we picked up over years. So how many of you are doing Radio Pro EBUS or have access to Radio Pro EBUS? Can I have a raise of hands, show of hands, please? That's probably about 1/3 of the people who probably have basically, first is to try and differentiate how it is different from the contact probe. The electron is taken endochronically to the lesion via the airways, and conduit to this small ultrasound probe. The probe is a lot thinner. It is almost like the forceps that you have. At the tip of a long catheter inserted via the working channel of a normal flexible bronchoscope. There are components, that is, you have the ultrasound probe itself and you have a guide sheet which you may or may not use. This guide sheet allows the ultrasound catheter to go through the catheter itself with a probe. Accessories, you have forceps, wrench, needles that goes through the sheet, and the cryoprobe. So this is the difference. So this is the presentation. When you look at a convex probe here, the scope itself is a dedicated scope, 20 to 35 degrees forward view, and you have a dedicated channel to which only the EBUS needle goes through. And you are able to see, when you're looking at the lymph node, you are able to see the lymph node and you are able to sample it in real time. Whereas what happens is, wherever the problem arises, you have this probe going into the channel of the you are able to see the lesion. But once you see the lesion and you know that the lesion is there, because there is no channel within the probe itself, projection में वही देना है स्ट्रीमिंग में मतलब यही दिखाना है स्ट्रीमिंग sort of landmark, and you need to insert the forceps or whatever accessory that you need to use through the same channel so this probe comes away. So it is not actually real time. So the details we already dealt with. This is the higher sample will be what is here. Outer diameter is 1.9 and can be inserted to the constant channel. And you can access the upper lobe vision of this way using the 1.9 scope. The guide sheet is between 2 to 6.2 mm to 2.6 mm. So this is what it is. So when you use a guide sheet, this is the guide sheet. There is a radio opaque leash, there is a radio opaque tip to the guide sheet, and the guide sheet. This is the radial probe that is gone through the guide sheet, and this is the radial probe inside the guide sheet. So you got the bronchoscope. In the channel you got the guide sheet. Inside that there is the radial probe. Then once you localize the lesion, the guide sheet is left in place, and the radial probe is replaced by the forceps or whatever accessory that you planning to use. So these are the different types. Of course, the bigger guide sheet requires a bigger therapeutic scope, whereas the smaller guide sheet can be used in a smaller scope. So these are the steps that you need to. You need to have a good team working with you and you'll have to work with the team to make sure that all these things are done before the procedure itself. So you see that this is the small radial probe EBUS per se. This is an accessory that comes with the radial probe processor. This is the radial probe processor. Once this is inside, first you have to fix the radial probe to the guide sheet. You have to make sure that you know the length at which the radial probe or the tip where the ultrasound processor is there is just out of the guide sheet. The tip where there is a radiopaque lesion. So this can also be visualized in the fluoroscope. You can see that once the tip is just outside, this is marked in place so that once this is inserted into the bronchoscope, you know at what position it actually just gets out of the guide sheet. So this is the first thing that you do. And once you're done with this, you have to do this to all the accessories, in the sense that this is the forceps. You have to similarly fix the forceps. So the forceps is taken inside. You have to make sure that the forceps is just coming outside, and you are able to open the forceps. So these are multiple blockers which are there. You can see when you're doing the hands-on session today. And you have to make sure that you are able to open the forceps. So all these things you have to do. So if you're using, if you're planning to use a brush, the same thing has to be done for the brush. If you're planning to use cryoprobe, you have to do the same thing to the cryoprobe. So once this is done, next thing is to make sure that you are using a guide sheet, and the guide sheet acts as an extension of the bronchoscopic channel. So this is what you do. So if you look at it, so again there is a marker to which you can, with the marker you can actually lock or assign the area in which the lesion is localized. So assuming that this is going into the this is going into and finding where the lesion is, you can see that the probe is sitting slightly withdrawn. Now the probe is being pushed down. Now, but you will keep pushing the probe along with the guide sheet as a single unit through the channel till you are able to see the lesion. Till you are able to see the lesion. So once you are pushing that, you are able to see the lesion. Once you see the lesion, so suppose once you are able to visualize the lesion, you will push this topward to make sure that this is the length at which the lesion has been localized. So now here the main point is to make sure that there is no movement of your hand, and this is where your fluoroscope also helps. If you use a fluoroscope, you will be able to visualize the radiopaque tip which is there. So now once this lesion is localized, here you will leave the guide sheet there, withdraw the radial probe, and then a lot of other accessories can be left. So one of the practical points is for the guide sheet, one of the pros, better sense of being in position. So once you have a guide sheet in place and you leave the guide sheet, it's the extension of the channel itself. So you have a better sense of being in position. You can take several passes before rechecking the position. Once you leave the guide sheet and you are, and especially if you have a fluoro also guiding you, once you know that you are in that position, you can keep taking biopsies. You can probably take 4 to 6 biopsies before you reinsert the radial probe into the guide sheet to make sure that you are in the same position. It helps in tamper effect, meaning that since the guide sheet is there, if you do a TBNA or if you do a brush or if you do a biopsy, and if there is a little bit of bleed, just like how it happens when you do a transbronchial lung biopsy, you make sure that the channel is allowed to have a tamper effect. Same sort of tamper effect is done by the guide sheet. What are the cons? Of course, guide sheet is supposed to be for a single use, so it adds to the cost of the procedure, and the probe fits luckily in a small sheet. So what happens is, especially if you are trying to go into the upper lobe, the probe can get stuck between the tip of the sheet and if there is an angulation, when you are trying to, once you localize, if you are trying to pull the probe back, it can lead to the probe getting damaged. So this is what it is. So extending the channel, you are in the meat of the lesion, leaving the sheet there, putting the forceps inside, and taking a bite. So what are the differences between a big and a small sheet? The big one needs a therapeutic scope, accepts bigger biopsy forceps, so more tissue, difficult to maneuver into the upper lobe, and scope remains more proximal. Whereas a small, you can use 4.2 diameter outer diameter scope with a 2 you are in channel 3, accept the smaller sheet. The scope is able to reach more distal areas, better cannulation of the subsegments. Upper lobe, the acute angles are easily tackled, but you always have the risk of the probe getting stuck within the sheet, and of course you get smaller tissue. So these can clearly make out the difference between the size of the forceps which goes into the bigger the smaller sheet. So what are the forceps practical tips works best when the sheet or probe is in the right in the meat of the lesion that we saw already. Once in position, forceps along with the sheet as a single unit is pulled back by a couple of centimeters so that you are allowing enough space for the forceps to open. Person assisting then opens the forceps and the unit goes back into position. Assistant then closes the forceps. This step is repeated several times before deploying the forceps back into the sheet. After 3 to 4 passes, the probe is reinserted to check the position. You have to make sure that there is no change in the position of the sheet. Ideal to have fluorovirus in that position and also that of forceps opening. Especially if you are using a small forceps, this forceps can you feel like you are opening the forceps may not open. Fluoro helps in confirming to make sure that the forceps is open. So if you look at this is the brush. Similarly, the brush is inserted. You make sure that the brush is coming down right at the tip, and then the person who is assisting you will push the brush out, and there will be both to and fro motion which can be seen in fluoro if you have, and to make sure that it doesn't go beyond the lesion. So you can see that there is there is a to and fro motion of the brush. So it will pick up the cells which are there in the bronchus. And in addition to to and fro motion, you can also have a rotatory motion. You see that there is a rotatory motion also that can be done. Again, these things can be better understood when we do hands-on. Olympus, despite the fact that we don't have the Olympus dedicated needle, we were using their TDNA needle. That also they have decided to discontinue now. We'll have to look for other alternatives. Idea is that the reed is eccentric. Like you see that you cannot take it as a forceps eccentric. You'll have to do the smear and then you'll have to do rows. Sandeep is there, smiling, saying that we have withdrawn the needle. So let's see what we can do. So interesting accessory curette. The only time we talk about curette is when we're talking about in lectures. So this curette is supposed to help you get into tough angles. It does help you get into tough angles, but the only problem is then the sheath kinks once the curette comes out. When the sheath kinks, you find it difficult, especially in the smaller sheath, you find it difficult to even push the radial probe into the this one. So, but curette is there. So, cryoprobe, we started using this at 1.9. 1.9 cryoprobe goes into the larger sheet with a little bit of difficulty. There is just 7-fold increase in the size of the tissue. I mean, of course, there is a risk of bleed. With the 1.1 and 1.7 probe, the 1.1 actually comes with a dedicated sheet of its own. So, the dedicated sheet is, there are certain issues with the dedicated sheet. So, this dedicated sheet sort of locks into the channel, the suction bush comes out and you can lock it in place. But this dedicated sheet, even when it is maximally extended out, only protrudes out by about 3 centimeters beyond the tip of the scope, which means that it can only have a tamponade effect. So the dedicated sheet is, because with the dedicated sheet, you can only take it in the therapeutic scope, but you can leave the sheet there and you don't have to take the entire scope out. That is the only point going in favor. But not with the sheet inside, and since it is blocking the entire suction channel, usually maneuvering the scope also becomes difficult. And this sheet also does not have a radio opaque tape. So what happens is you will not be able to see it in fluoro. But in certain places where you find that probably there is a little proximal, this can be used. Pieces, of course, when you're using only a 1.1 are small in comparison. So that is all. I mean, we don't have too many other things. So it's an excellent addition to our armamentarium, even if Dr. Sarmesh does not agree. Probe is fragile, that will have to be very enough. We found out the tough way, especially the first probe that we used about 6-7 years ago. Comes with a lots of nuts and bolts. You will have to work with your technicians. You will have to make sure that they know what they are doing. And all you are doing once you localize is making sure that you have a stable hand if you are holding it in position. Everything else is done by the person who is assisting it. Before each procedure, you will have to make sure that all these nuts and bolts are tightened by a well-trained physician. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arjun, for this elaboration. So the idea is that you want to extract the solution. What you do, you mount the sheet over the printed row. So yeah, put this assembly into the design segment where you can apply the vision, then you leave the sheet there, remove the throw mount, and then pass the synthesis to something. Couple of things that while the sheet is in, the operator doesn't know his hand or anything, the proper focus will be in the same position. Another important aspect is that when pushing the probe through the sheet again, please make sure the probe is not active. And when the probe goes, it's to be used. So if it is going through the sheet, right, you have to identify the sheet, even the probe will get damaged. So, any questions for Dr. Arjun? I think we have several questions.
So, do you use this 1.1 probe with the sheet for peripheral functions as a routine, or you do it as a special biopsy?
No, you find it. Now we use it as a routine, but we don't use it with the dedicated sheet. That it comes in with. For peripheral lesions, we tend to use the 1.1 over the 1.7 or 1.9. Now
Without the
far better flexibility. But we tend to use it with the routine radial sheet, because that's a lot longer. It has got the radio opaque tip. The only thing is obviously you have to withdraw the whole thing out, and since it's a cryo, you always have a higher risk of bleed, so you always have a Bogart.
So what are you needing? You're needing a guide sheet, you're needing a forceps, you're needing a bracket, you're needing a radial, so anyway.
You need to buy a CD. All these cheaper than a CD.
Yeah, so I think what we do is we provoke damage during the panel discussion and we will get that for the time being. But I think the main issue is that when you are the whole base for this discussion is that on one hand is what a peripheral pulmonary lesion where you may access it transthoracically with the percutaneous function with CT direct, and then the other is that you may do it in a slightly safer manner in the bronchoscope and try to access it with the things that you described. So I think it's a question of suiting what is best to the patient, and then eventually taking a call as to whether you have the wherewithal. And I think the reason for putting this session here is that you have to realize that whether you have all the things necessary for being able to do this. Because as you will see from the subsequent lectures, you might need thinner scopes, you might need an ultra-thin scope, etc., and you need fluoroscopy and to be able to use the fluoroscopy. So all those things also must be kept in mind by anyone who is opting for either of these two procedures. So, Patani, you want to call the next speaker?
You and I about robotic bronchoscopy. So, what's the take on that? Oh, yes, please. So I think we can go into the next.
Yeah, so the next topic will be optimal use of CT for better localization of radiation, peripheral lesions. And for this, we'll call Dr. Manish Kumar Agarwal, another focus with Dr. Manish, Senior Consultant, Jacob Golden Hospital and Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute Center. He's got many presentations in national and international conferences. And is founder director of the leading air ambulance company in India. That's what we have.
Thank you very much, and I must say thank you to Dr. Goyal and Mr. Patabi for such nice introduction. I don't feel ashamed to promote my air ambulance company also. Thank you. So, I would start by saying that your EBUS is not going to do anything unless until you target the reason reach the user. So we have to use optimal use of our CT scan to target those PPLs where we need PPLs. So what is a PPL? It's a total parenchymal opacity that you commonly encounter during chest imaging. They can be less than 3 cm when they are called nodules, or they may be more than 3 cm when they are called mass. And by definition, they are completely surrounded by normal parenchyma and cannot be visualized endobronchially by conventional bronchoscopy, which means or either scope like 500 millimeter diameter. And there should not be any associated with any contraction on the bronchi and the bronchial region. Direct inflammation or bleeding of the bronchi when examined during bronchoscopy. So when we target such lesion, you need to have three things. You need to have a vehicle where you can take and reach to your destination. Then you need a direction or a route map so that you can reach there safely and in time. And then you probably need to localize the lesion or confirm the lesion whether you have reached there. This is the target lesion. So the vehicle is your thin scope, thick scopes, ultra thin scopes, programming properties. So as you go down the generations of where the diameter of the bronchi, they diminish, so you need thinner scopes, maybe ultra thin scopes, and then you need a direction in terms of a GPS or a map, which we can say is kind of a EMN, electromagnetic navigation, or virtual bronchoscopy, or you can use landmarks. When I say landmarks, that means you have no access to EMN or virtual bronchoscopy. You have to rely on your optimal use of CT chest to reach that target lesion. And once you reach the target lesion, you have to localize the lesion, and then you can use your fluoroscopy, radioprobe EBUS, on CT or augmented fluoroscopy. So again, EBUS is not an LEDH. You must remember this in mind. And therefore, when we use alone in absence of navigational tools like EMN or virtual bronchoscopy or without any understanding of our CT chest, it relies on our ability to navigate peripheral airways to reach to the target lesion. And that is based on our own understanding of CT and active correlation. And the inability to reliably locate peripheral lesion is a significant barrier to the success of bronchoscopic approaches, and the yield will go lower when the lesion is less than 2 centimeters, where there is no bronchus leading to the target lesion, and when the lesion is in the outer one third of the nerve. So, just a word about what is the bronchus sign, where your lesion is reaching to the bronchus is leading to the target lesion. So, when you look at the CT scan, there is a bronchus which is leading to the target. So when you put your articles into this bronchus, you in our right you should get a picture which is more like this. It is a concentric article. If the bronchus is adjacent to your target lesion, you put your articles into this bronchus, you will get an eccentric lesion. And if you put it in some normal bronchus, this is a sense of appearance which we normally found. So when you look at the CT, try to look for a bronchus site so that you can reach to this your target lesion. Otherwise, you can refer them to Dr. Dharmesh for transthoracic biopsies. So CT is activation. So just a word about subarachnoid bronchus relationship. Just to reiterate, if the bronchus is leading directly to the tumor, the chances of getting a diagnostic field on your clinical is much higher in comparison to something where the bronchus is not leading to your target lesion but adjacent. And next, what about bronchial nomenclature? We all know we have Jackson Hoover or Gordon, which is more common to use. What about the generation of airways? Because when I was young, I was like confused which is the first generation airway was the second generation, was the third generation, so on. So when they say ultra thin, probably you can distinguish the generation. So I was very confused in my mind what is first generation. So I thought maybe for our students we can say the American and the European consider male bronchus as the first generation, while the Japanese consider probably will put more light on it. They consider as apical segment or the upper lobe bronchus or the middle lobe bronchus or the lower lobe bronchus as the second generation, first generation. So, if you take this, your first generation is your
right upper lobe bronchus. Second generation would be your either apical, anterior, or posterior segment. And then further, you can go up. You go into apical. There are two subsegments. Then you go to third generation, and fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. And you can name them with this like first generation is right upper lobe, RB1, and this is third upper Jackson Weaver. And then the subsequent generations are considered. We use for third generation, we use A. For fourth generation, we use AI. Fifth generation would be alpha beta. Sixth generation would be X1. So we generally don't need them, but just to tell them, your fellow colleague that well I am into fifth generation, you can say well I am into the alpha beta kind of nomenclature. And just to reiterate, segmental bronchus would be considered as second generation. So it's either it is apical, anterior, posterior, medial, distal segment of right middle lobe. They are all second generation, and from there onward you would consider as third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And when you target your lesions, you need to be mindful of your bronchoscope size, because first, second, third generation, you can lose your regular bronchoscope at 5.8 millimeter. And when you have to go further down into fourth, fifth generation, where the diameter of bronchi is around 3.5, you can use your thinner bronchoscope less than 4 millimeter. And sixth generation onward, you probably would be needing ultra thin with a diameter of 3.2, 3.5, etc. So just so this is with a 5.8 scope. We are going into right upper the bronchus. This is anterior segment. So second generation, this could be considered as third generation. And we can look into the fourth generation. We can't enter with our conventional scope with 5.8. So if you look at the ultra thin scope, here we have entered into the right upper lobe bronchus, all generation, and then this is posterior segment. And if you look at the reach of the bronchus, your scope into the generations of bronchi, you are looking at the fifth or sixth generation of airways. So you have to be mindful. If you see on your CT, your vision is very, very peripheral, so probably you need a ultra thin or thin scope to reach there. It won't be a good idea to use your conventional bronchoscope of 5.8 millimeter diameter. So that is all about it. And as I said, if you are not able to reach your target lesion, you are not able to either do a biopsy or use your EBUS. So you need to have a very clear-cut picture in your mind how are you going to reach the target lesion. And pre-bronchoscopic CT scans are always available to us. And if we are lucky, you can go to a radiologist room, do multiplanar reconstructions, which are relatively easy to perform and without any close to patient. And a thinner CT scan with a cut of less than 1 millimeter is probably appropriate to look for those bronchi which are leading to the target lesion. Dr. Kodimoto, you
slightly, slightly late, so the 2 minutes.
So I will discuss about the landmarks, how to recognize the segment where your target lesion is there. So it is like upper trachea, lower trachea, right upper lobe bronchus origin, bronchus circumflex origin, middle lobe origin, or the truncus basalis. So when you look at the upper trachea, it's a sternum or 5 vessel view. Whatever you see is probably all apical. There is no anterior segment on this cut of CT. So if your target is there, you can be very sure that you are going to go to the apical segment of upper lobes. Once you reach to the aortic arch level, your all three segments of upper lobes are defined here: anterior, apical, and posterior. Whatever comes below the fissure is considered as superior segment of lower lobes. So once you reach to the beyond the carina, you see the right upper lobe bronchus origin, and where you can see there is no apical lobe, or whatever is there is anterior, posterior, and then anything below the fissure is superior segment. So on the left side it would be anterior, apical, posterior, and superior. You go further down into your airway, you reach to the bronchus intermedius, which is also a right following artery origin and here you can see there is no posterior. So as you go down, the apical goes, the posterior goes. So there is no posterior. Whatever is clearly is anterior segment. Whatever below the fissure is again superior or apical segment of the lower lobe. So once you go more deep into your bronchus intermedius, you would see right middle lobe bronchus. When you see right middle lobe bronchus, there is no anterior segment that ends here. So this is the medial subsegment of right middle lobe. This is lateral subsegment, and what happens? This is the superior segment of right lower lobe. So this is all superior segment. This is medial. This is lateral lobe, right middle lobe. There is no anterior. Go further down, you see transverse disalis. There is no superior segment level here. This is all medial basal. This is anterior, this is lateral, this is posterior. So whatever region here is in the anterior part, anterior bronchus of right lower lobe. So is lateral, posterior, medial basal. This is medial part of right middle lobe. This is lateral. So remember, when you are looking at the aortic arch level, all three are presented here, anterior, apical, posterior. You reach down below, right upper lobe bronchus. You see there is hardly any apical, there is anterior, posterior, superior. You go further down, there is only anterior and superior. If you go further down, then you see right middle lobe, medial segment and lateral segment, and then anterior, lateral and so you can look for radiopedia protocol, then you can see this video, a beautiful video, which kind of tell you at what section you will get this set. So we reach at 5 vessel view. You can see this is all apical. Which are the aorta, anterior, posterior, and superior segment of right lobe. Now the brain start dividing. This is dividing into anterior segment, posterior segment. This is all anterior, this is all posterior, and this below fissure is superior. This is bronchus intermedius, and then comes the right middle lobe, which again is dividing into medial and lateral subsegment. And then this is bronchus medial. This is inferior to bronchus posterior. Lateral, which is again dividing into lateral and posterior. So, if you have a privilege to look at the videos, you can see which bronchus is leading you to your target. Based on this identification of the right upper lobe bronchus, anterior posterior segment. So, I will be finishing this lecture by saying. What do you think this target is big part of our students? So this is the apical segment. So if we look at the further plane, we can see the apical bronchus going in there, and if you look closely, there is the lateral segment, and there is so right upper lobe would be the first generation, apical would be second. This part where it is dividing into medial and lateral, this would be third generation. And you can see this lateral subsegment is not going into the medial subsegment of apical lobe is going into apical bronchus is going into the so you change this bronchus there on the CT scan, and as you go up, you can see there is another medial branch taking off from this medial subsegment of apical lobe. Then there is lateral. This is again dividing into medial and lateral, and probably the lateral part of that medial subsegment of apical bronchus is leading to this segment. So if you put your use the ultra thin bronchoscope and put the EBUS in there, probably will get an eccentric picture. So if you look at the segment of diagram, this is all apical. This is lateral. This segment, this, then this is all medial. If you go into this medial branch, is again two branches. One is medial, this is lateral. So you can draw this kind of bronchoscopic diagram for your before you go for EBUS, and I mean if you start doing it every day, you probably will be getting more lesions than somebody who is not practicing. And let's not do such exercise because we are late. So I'll be finishing. If it's sufficient. Thank you.
Very nice. I think the point you were trying to make was that in the absence of navigation, which most sectors won't have, a good reading of the city and then trying to sit on the city and trying to map the city gives you a very good idea of where to go when you're doing the bronchoscopy. So when you're doing the bronchoscopy, before that, it helps you to decide like, okay, is there a likelihood that I'm going to reach it at all with a conventional therapeutic bronchoscope or not? If I'm going to use a thinner scope, then where should I go? So it will lessen the time that you'll spend in doing the bronchoscopy and trying to reach that place. And I think we are all learning this, but I think more and more proper interpretation of the city is essential, because you many times find that you are doing bronchoscopy, but you are given a CT and asked which segment does this particular region belong, and you are at C. So that is very, very important. So right, thank you very much. So it's my pleasant duty to invite our international faculty, Dr. Henry, and he has come all the way from Japan, and he is an expert on radial probe EBUS. At present, he is the director of the Endoscopy Center at the Miyazaki Prefectural Miyazaki Hospital, director of pulmonary medicine at the same hospital, also the director of medical informatics. He has a vast experience and has done some premier work in radial probe EBUS with one of the most important people in bronchoscopy and radial bronchoscopy, Dr. Oki. So over to you, Dr. Henry, and thank you for coming here, and we are looking forward to listening to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for your wonderful introduction. Thank you all for coming today to this great conference. I'm very honored to come to this IBUS. I'm Dr. Fuji from Japan, Miyazaki is located in Kyushu Island and the south part of Japan. And Miyazaki is first place in the Korea Day ranking in Japan. So very good time. This time is wonderful. This is my hospital, and I have been we support the last years, the last 2 years, 8 years, and which hospital and evaluates and finance. The direct here of the conventional method is insufficient. This is a way for conventional drugs using approximate diagnosis. For the surgical process, many efforts we made to diagnose here. This slide shows an improved point and purpose solution. Many of the ideas to advance EBUS to more frequent drugs. This solution is safe drugstore or a drugstore. And furthermore, guidance from EBUS to navigate EBUS to the sample is solution. And combination of ideas is the real-time combination. This solution is running EBUS. And the reliable and efficient by the this is Dr. Shigara, recognized by
नॉइज आ रही है वॉल्यूम थोड़ा कम करो
वही कर रहा सर उसको म्यूट करने का
कर लेक्चर क्या सुनने का
carriers that they will be able to. So, taken together, in Japan, the EMP industry is widely transmitted, is widely used. And today, my talk has been on preparation for preparation for separation. And as a second topic, I'll explain my actual Thoracoscopy procedure. And finally, I'll explain sample processing, test flow, and test result for molecular diagnosis of lung cancer using PCR or one Today, I'm going to talk on Thoracoscopy, but the purpose of the Thoracoscopy is to select high-quality samples of having a quick strategy of patient. So, it is considered by society to provide post-appropriate information. Primary for if you choose primary, EBUS CDB, CDNB, or secondary. If you choose secondary one, EBUS CDNA or EBUS CDNA. Planning illustration now, we are identify the segment of the car, zero from the side. Yes, you are more likely to be able to find the vision and the values of this fact. If not, we will have additional knowledge with the prior to activity. And next, how do you get there? Plan, vision plan, and vision passcode to the vision based on your information over the study and animation and budget on the course of the navigation system. This slide shows planning and consideration. Condition increase by CDC and create navigation image and create a shopping base over time contact. This is a book written by Dr. Fujimoto and also and describing in detail how to read image of in Japanese it's called and next, it has created reading information using the navigation system. There are standard navigation messages around all and one station is the station. I heard that ground point is here. And this is really English by the Restoration and the movement. We have with the overall and navigation system that can use combination with the tools and and we can clearly show the location of the target very acceleration image theoretical threshold. We can test and use reference for life society restaurants. We can be confirmed for much less for and what we should This slide shows we have shown that this working angle for the target region. Should we show under the formal region we will show that the line to the is working angle. Because the line here is not right here. But as an angle, we need to have a chart or we can show how to use this the process. In addition, the image can be used to image graph, which is that we program for solution. it's difficult to reach the regions. Those up and down and down. So, I will get here. If it's difficult to reach the region, application devices right to it. And compare the question versus scope, we will choose UTD first. That's okay. I'm trying to decide this but I couldn't get to the region. Therefore, I tried using the guiding field. At first, I used synchronous source. This is region. And basically to conflict, I will show you some tips for relationships between SPTD. But here I would like to review the basic operation of Thoracoscopy technique. Thoracoscopes don't have the ability to bring left to right, and so evidence to and up and down and rotation is the other basic operation. Observation and equation by either performed by combination of these three operations. This rotational operation is very important. There are the important point of this rotational operation. Already globally transmit the rotational operation to the long scope. It is important to tighten the updates first. When open, this means no transmit. Also contribute to the jigsaw long scope. And next is how to hold the PS. Please hold it with your knuckle, not with your palm. Please see right side. And right foot. Holding the arm. The rotation range will be weak. And this will be always level. We can rotate any 360 degrees. Also, we can use knuckle and wrist. And at rest, please hold your PS straight and the back PS. This is sufficient. Once the rotational power up ahead to the tip of the PS. If the power is bent, the rotational operation can happen without being transferred to the PS. Wait. And because the assembly within each session and just the section also perform the process and locations were drawn the space for years very important. The balance is when no one is in the region because it was high. However, that was when no was adjusted the same when the control doesn't reach to the region, how do you work on this situation? I will show you something. The first is we select the broadcast Thoracoscopy image. When you have go to the broadcast, but you can't get clear EBUS image for the broadcast and scope. You say one, X, 2, 2, that's 2, 3, and the second is the verified target stage that is very important. When a target which can be verified, but it's adjusted which is happens down for example, you need fix or control with tap handle you get clear investigation and if you control with a down arrow because investigation the region will be outside the so control directly the region is strong control and again and that's control then control sometimes I will show you my video and in case of the assembly, let's say two or even small, he has to use the file this is this ratio is comparable with the US and the website. 4 millimeter sequence with 2 millimeter 1 channel and right the 3.2 millimeter sequence is 1.7 millimeter 1 channel. One way to use UTV is to use its small video. This can be conducted by Oki and well. That was different is one of the games. So this is good action for you. And by 59 of the EGC, so we can do that. The diagnostic field the UTV results is higher than the however, there are some difficulties to use so I on page or on bottom also. And next, another way. Another way to do it is to teach this is a joint research with NASA and laboratory groups. The aim of this study is sequentially repeat all the details. Indicates that our data go through the insertion development sequence. This image shows the precision of the CPS. Target duration is all true. Gauge is weight. Frequency is VA, and also we can see A1 and 2. But we can diagrams VAs more easily. X-ray was a long way. Is VA2 and next one is VA2 alpha. So when we use we must have the frequency maybe 6 generation drivers. Alpha 4 speeds are the position of dB and the lower but when you use expression is very important. And we will use also operation is different. It's important to get as close to the observation as possible. And the process must be zero sum. And in the case of just using and I'd like to rush people on the processing of the analysis to the particular for the frequency. In Japan, to decide treatment strategy for the particular cancer, for GFR, have brought the last and great especially in the one PCR, red circle shows its case as combining the for each lens. But there are some misconceptions that but will be discussed. In addition, there is a screening program called LG Scrum, information processor, and education participators. That's LG Scrum. It's a big white. This is our sample basis. We use by by psychology. And it is component for psychology for sexual. This is why I show the rating of the evaluation influence to analyze. With this example, you should see this. Example analyze 25 use versus EBUS to stability, EBUS to EBUS. And by this analysis, we can find its wide application. Its application where it's applicable that we are trying to drive. And all local analysis, the recognition of sample size for value, the components, and so on. But it's difficult to change the positives in so, this week, we determined the amount of students to be submitted according to the questions paper. Depending on the number of answers, the methodologist will decide how many questions we need to submit. And this table shows the success rate for multi-year, success rate for annual output. But in some cases, HGS this is for both HGS requires a higher, larger sample volume. This table shows the amount of DNA already worked by several methods. Regularly made the different amount of DNA are particularly for evaluation analysis. All methods can but evaluation method tend to be less. That's why we decided to analyze. This is not evaluation, but evaluation. Our data goes into the our command to be evaluated. The amount of data higher than that of evaluation, and the amount of higher than that of evaluation. So we can choose method to make patient samples according to patient condition and for presentation. And if you look at this, you are very able to control samples. So we have to make use of association department. Of course, is we can control the calculation about which considered priority for organized using single fundamental mechanisms. And we should retain the base of the electricity and improve the I expect that my lecture is useful for improving your university. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Musi, and it at once kind of brought to our attention the close detail in which you go when you are doing these procedures, right up to the fact that you want the thoracoscopy person to hold his arms tight while doing the thoracoscopy. So I think that when you want to do work of quality, then you have to look at each aspect and try to see how you can improve in getting that quality. And that would include, the way you are doing it and the way you are handling the samples and everything. Just one or two questions I wanted to ask you. Are all these cases done under general anesthesia? Okay, we are under conscious sedation. Yes, the radial EBUS cases, are they done under general anesthesia, local anesthesia, and sedation? Okay. Yeah. Another question I had was that when you are doing these cryobiopsies, which probe are you using? 1.7. Okay. And are you using a blocker every time? You are using a balloon blocker for controlling the bleeding, or you are not using? You are not using. So you prepare for that meeting, and then, so each time you take the cryographs, you take out the bronchoscope and the cryoprobe together, and then reintubate. Okay. You don't use it in all the cases. Okay. 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 Any other questions from the audience? Anyone wants to, ask Dr. anything? Yeah, Karan? Yeah. Yeah. Karan? Raise his hand first.
What is your yield with lesions which are smaller than 1.5 to 15 mm? What is your yield with the radial EBUS when the peripheral lesion is less than 15 mm?
Yeah, so her question is that what is your diagnostic yield when a lesion is less than 15 millimeters? What is the diagnostic yield in your experience? Yeah, that is very impressive.
Very impressive. We are struggling with 40-50%. I think what's the most important factor among all the steps which can improve the yield preparation? Checking the bronchial mapping and
How useful do you find the null point during education? Null point during education. Yes, so I think Dr. Manoj is asking is that how useful do you find the navigation? How much does it add to what you do, or do you always use it while you are doing these cases? Do you always use the Vincent when you are doing the cases? Always. I also understood from his talk that we are using the virtual fluoroscopy, map that is given, which comes along with the software. So that gives you a very good idea as to which area to look at, perhaps which type of bronchoscope to use. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Hemiji. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There was one more mention recently by Dr. Karan Madhan, who was not there in the second session. So he is speaking on EBUS designing why and how. Dr. Karan Madhan is additional professor, pulmonary medical care and sleep psychology institute and medical science in his clinical research you all know is drawing of intervention pulmonology, psychiatrist, and there were 280 publications. He got many awards, Research Excellence Award, Blood India Award, and also currently assistant director of India. Always a pleasure to listen to Dr. Karan. Over to Dr. Karan. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. for inviting me here to speak on this topic. I would briefly, give you an overview of USBL. The procedure in which the EBUS bronchoscope is introduced to these figures to small samples. And what an interventional pulmonologist needs to know is, doing EBUS imaging, how do you move to this procedure? When is it indicated, when you should not do this, procedure also. So, EBUS, as most of you would know, it translates into a bronchoscopic ultrasound guided high needle aspiration, which is transesophageal. So, your EBUS bronchoscope is introduced to the esophageal loop. It was described in the year 2009, and its usefulness has also been described in cancer staging. A review on this topic by my friend Sejal, demonstrated
that if you add a transesophageal aspiration to EBUS TPNA, the yield becomes higher. That does not mean that you need to do a transesophageal sampling in all your patients. It is realized when it is done, then if you do both the procedures, it increases. So why do we
Yes, sir.
think
ये
about
network sustainable
introducing the
problem आ रही
EBUS scope to the esophagus? Now this cartoon actually shows you, if you focus on the,
Sir,
on the left. Do you have a pointer? Yeah. So this is the EUS scope which the gastroenterologist would use. If you would appreciate, it's quite a huge scope. The diameter is 14.6 millimeter, and the largest size adult bronchoscope which pulmonologists would use would be 6.2 to 6.3 millimeter. So this size is more than double that of a bronchoscope, and your EBUS scope would be close, a larger EBUS scope will be close to 7.4 millimeter. So this is a much larger scope. If you compare the EBUS scope, it is quite thinner. And if you see the working assembly, it's a quite complicated assembly for the gastroenterologist. But all we have is quite a simple lever which we use to maneuver the scope. So what it means is that both have ultrasound capability, but the size of the EBUS bronchoscope is like an ultra-thin endoscope. So that is why it is easier to negotiate, though there are some limitations because of the technicality, the angulation, leverage. But in most cases of large or prominent lymph nodes, it is good enough to sample them to the esophagus. Now this is one of the most important slides of the presentation, that what is the reach from esophageal approach for the mediastinum as compared to a tracheal approach. So what it means is that once you have a esophagus lies slightly to the left side. So basically your central and the left-sided lymph nodes are the ones which are approachable by a transesophageal approach. So what it would mean is that starting from the higher paratracheal, the left upper paratracheal, left lower paratracheal, the subcanal paraesophageal pulmonary ligament. These are the nodes which lie in the axis of the esophagus and can be easily approached through an esophageal approach. If you go down below the diaphragm, the access also increases to approach the left adrenal gland, the abdominal lymph nodes, and also the liver metastasis, because liver can be visualized once you approach your scope to the esophagus. The right-sided lymph nodes are conventionally not approachable by EUS BFNA, but grossly enlarged 4R node or a 2R node, if it's kind of enlarged, can be approached through a transesophageal approach. Important to note that any node from the higher station to beyond cannot be sampled by a transesophageal approach. The aortopulmonary lymph nodes and the para-aortic lymph nodes are conventionally not directly approachable by either of the approaches, where transvascular approach they can also be sampled. So, coming to what is the utility, whether EUS BFNA works. So these are three randomized controlled trials which have head-on compared EUS BFNA versus EBUS TPNA in consecutively selected patients with a left paratracheal and subcanal predominant lymph node. In our clinical practice also, the most common lymph node which we see is the right paratracheal, subcanal, and followed by the left paratracheal. So all the trials showed that the diagnostic yield of both the approaches is similar. And what was interesting to note is that EUS BFNA is associated with a shorter procedure, much lower sedation and topical anesthesia. You are not going to the trachea, therefore less desaturation and higher operator satisfaction. If you see the yield, overall yields ranges from 70 to 87%, and it was a reasonably good sensitivity. But it's important to note that this is a modality for only on patients who have a predominant left paratracheal and a subcanal kind of station involvement. So I'll give you 2 or 3 very brief case vignettes, and then we'll come to the technique, how do you do it. So this is a 33-year-old farmer with a history of cough and breathlessness. He's also having dysphagia for 1 week and he underwent imaging. If you see the chest radiograph, that is essentially normal. If you see the CT scan, the upper sections are okay. But if you went down, you see mass-like involvement, which is at a level of left atrium and below. So this is something like a paraesophageal kind of a station involvement. So this is a mass which is centrally located. It is beyond the carina and it is in the central axis. So any guesses how would you approach it? If you see the location, so it is kind of way below. So these are
options, and as you would see that it is beyond the subchorial station, your bronchoscopic approach cannot reach there. So you can either do an EBUS or do an EBUS BFNA. So in this patient, we performed an EBUS BFNA. This was a round cell tumor, which was given to the person. Another case, this was a 15-year-old child who was having fever, large preassigned lymph nodes, and the pediatrics people had a differential between TB and a lymphoma. And this patient was planned for, was referred to the gastroenterology services for EBUS. Now, for the very precise reason we discussed in the first slide, that the size of an EBUS scope is 14.9 millimeters. In a very small child, it is virtually impossible to introduce that size EBUS scope. So in this case, we got a referral from the gastroenterology team, and we introduced our EBUS scope to the esophagus to do the procedure. So this is the first case description of EBUS BFNA in children, in a very small child. And what we were able to find was that under moderate sedation, this could be easily performed. And after that, it opened the avenues for pediatric, endoscopic interventions. So this is a meta-analysis which we performed regarding the utility of EBUS and EBUS BFNA in children. And what we found that in children, because the approaches are very difficult, the surgical approach or a VAD is usually required. But if you do EBUS or EBUS BFNA as an adjuvant modality in children, you get a very good sampling adequacy. The diagnostic yield is around 60%, but that is acceptable because it can avoid an invasive procedure in a fair majority of children. And it has got a very, very low major complication rate and minor complication. So that is why EBUS BFNA and EBUS BFNA have transformed the approach to medium standard. This is another of our cases. This patient had a lung mass, a paratracheal mass, and also had an MPG avid left adrenal lesion. So in this patient, we performed left adrenal gland sampling using EBUS BFNA. We have done around 4 to 5 cases, and it's got a very, very good yield in visibly enlarged adrenal. So when do you consider EBUS BFNA? So it's important to know that you don't go ahead and do this modality upfront in all your patients. Patients who have an accessible lymph node by an EBUS TBNA approach, EBUS still remains the preferred modality in most of your patients. So you would consider this once you have lesions which are inaccessible by EBUS TBNA, or you have technical difficulty during EBUS TBNA. Say for example, a 4L node you are not able to fix, you are not able to get good material, or patient develops excessive coughing during the procedure, a patient with a respiratory failure in whom an endotracheal procedure is kind of risky. These are the kind of patients in whom EBUS BFNA can be considered as an approach. So also in patients in whom you are planning in lung cancer staging, and some patients you are not able to get easily through the esophageal approach, you can combine the esophageal and the tracheal approach, and that improves your yield for lung cancer staging. Now, a few slides on the technique. How do you do this procedure? So, the preparation is very similar. We do it in a supine position. Some people would do a lateral position also, but I think it can be easily performed in a supine position. Then, nil status, you do withhold the anti-coagulants or anti-platelets according to the recommendations. To maintain the oxygenation, we use normally nasal forms to give oxygen. And it is easily performed under mild to moderate intravenous sedation. And regarding the topical anesthetic, now the EBUS TBNA can also be performed using nasal or oral route. So it depends on operator preference. We do a fair bit of nasal EBUS TBNA once we are doing it under moderate sedation. And for the same reason, the EBUS BFNA can also be performed through the nasal route. So if you are using a nasal route, you can use lidocaine gel in the nostrils. If you are not using nasal route, you do some pharyngeal spray or a gargle or a lidocaine viscous or a lozenge. I mean, all these options are possible. And for the vocal cords, you can give spray as you go to the vocal cords. So what it mostly requires is some lidocaine in the pharynx, 2 or 3 sprays of lidocaine at the vocal cords, and that's all. So I think the lidocaine requirement is much less as compared to EBUS TBNA. So if you are doing the oral route, use a bite block, and then once you advance your scope like EBUS, reach the vocal cords and the jaw. Once you reach there, you gently nudge your scope from the left side and try to go posterior to the vocal cord and encourage the patient to swallow. So I think don't try to push it too hard. If you encourage the patient to swallow, then easily, in 2 to 3 seconds, the scope can easily move into the esophagus. And importantly, because esophagus is a collapsible tube, it always sticks on to the scope. So that is why a balloon contact is usually not required. You may require balloon inflation in some cases, but mostly without the balloons you can get a very good imaging. Now, and this is something which is, variable. People who are doing EBUS DNA, whether they do the systematic approach, identify all the anatomical structures and then do the sampling. With time, you need to identify what is a node and what is not a node. So, if you cannot identify that, don't do EBUS DNA. So you should confidently be able to identify that. What is important is once you take your transducer down, you first go and see the largest, chamber which is dilated and which is the left atrium. So basically, you identify the left atrium. Once you identify that, you draw your scope up, and then you can identify the LV, LVOT, and the aortic root. And once you are withdrawing your scope above from the heart, the first lymph node which you will encounter is the subchorial lymph node. So once you are, drawing it back, you will see the left edge of the node, and once you, rotate it to the right, then you get the entire subchorial node entirely. So this is a very classical slide which describes how do you take a landmark-based approach for EBUS BFNA, in which you start from the liver, then abdominal aorta, then the left ventricular gland, then come up, and this is what we need to take very important. Station 7 and the 4. So the station 7 is actually, you see, the right pulmonary artery below it and the left atrium on the left side. And on the oral node, which you will localize, you get the aortic arch on the bottom right and left pulmonary artery. So basically, these are the very important landmarks which you need to identify. And I think it is not difficult. With time, once you do it, you can identify these landmarks and do a safe sample. So this is what I was referring to. For station 7, you have the right pulmonary artery here and the LA here, and this is seen, and this is the side. For the 4L node, you will see the aortic arch here and the left pulmonary artery. So very importantly, because EBUS is essentially blind, because there is no endoscopic vision, because it's not supplemented with air. So it is all blind, so you always need to be careful whether your sheath has come out before you puncture your needle. Otherwise, there is risk of your scope. So if you look at the thromboscope, your sheath exits, you're not there at an arm muscle where you can see the sheath. Once you push your sheath out, you see that white coming in, and it will tell you that your sheath is out, it is safe to puncture. So, this is all. I'm not going to detailed videos to demonstrate it because the functional techniques are similar to EBUS DNA. But what are the essential differences of an esophageal puncture via with a laser clinical puncture? You need to do quick jab, because once you do EBUS BFNA, if you do a hesitant jab or you do a slow jab, it tends to push the mucosa and your node orientation to the ultrasound changes. So what you may end up is just sampling the periphery of the lymph node causing a mucosal tear or an abrasion. So once you identify or localize, you have to do a quick jab quickly into the lymph node. That is very important. And essentially, it's a blind procedure. Therefore, you identify the landmarks, and always you have to identify and differentiate that confidently. This is a node, and this is not a node. That's not a because most of the time your orientation is in relation to the vascular. And very importantly, on your pathology form, also write when we did an EBUS. Because sometimes it's important to see a lot of small cells. Then there might be confusion that where all those small cells
ये दिखा दूंगा वो चीज मैंने देख ली वो मैं सेव वो ब्रेक करेंगे ना मैं कर दूंगा नहीं नहीं ये लाइव आना चाहिए यहाँ ये लाइव आना चाहिए स्क्रीन पे तो मतलब चाहिए
As you say,
उनको मेनली चाहिए अपनी एक्टिविटीज
take 2 questions.
रिकॉर्डिंग चल रहा हूँ क्लास I think उसको जाके बोल माइक दे उसको बोल दिया कि माइक दो चला जाएगा
No, for staging, yes. For staging, yes. As a standalone diagnostic modality, comparative data can be. What I showed you was comparative data as a standalone diagnostic modality for let's 7 predominant regions. If you take a group of patients with 4 and 7 predominant here, EBUS versus EBUS, then the yield is similar. What we're talking about is a combination of EBUS stimulation, EBUS based in the context of lung cancer staging. There is data which shows that definitely EBUS combined superior to EBUS. But when and how do you do it based on that?
Is there any advantage of putting the EBUS scope through the nose for any of the procedures, EBUS or USBFM?
So I think it's a debate. Right now I am doing most of these procedures through a nasal loop. What we find is that if you do, it's a matter of comfort and how you do it. So initially we were reluctant, but in a patient in whom you can get a nasal scope through, it's a stable scope. So now there's sometimes drag and there is total secretion. But through the nasal loop, the procedure can help.
It's comfortable for the patient.
It's comfortable for the patient.
Okay.
So what we take care is, if you have any slight hesitation or a resistance, convert to a nasal procedure. It's not that you chose the nasal approach and you are bent and have it do a nasal procedure. You chose it as an initial approach, any sign of an issue.
Is the EBUS BFM when you do the maneuvering to get into the esophagus to completely turn the scope by 180 degrees? All those maneuvering in the nose may not be very comfortable for the patient, especially with EBUS BFM.
Okay, I think we can discuss it further. But any other? Okay,
Thank you, Dr. One thing, just one line thing for biological and how to use it for us. And regarding this USB, why your preferred choice in actually 7? In only student mode, so why you prefer to do that here? My preferred choice is always move to the because I have 6 to 12. I'm using this technique and it's very comfortable, you already know, 2 seconds straight. And third thing, to comment, the paraspinal access sometimes, even you can accelerate from the USB to the
And answering your first question, it's a very important question, and I would like to give this message also. Because if you do a USBFA as an upfront approach, you are limiting yourself to the central station. If you have a rapid on-site evaluation and your pathologist tells you that your material is adequate, then it's fine or diagnostic. But in case you sampled only one node when there were 3-4 patients involved, the diagnostic field is low. That is one issue. Because DNA and there's a multi-station involvement, you will end up sampling more nodes and sampling more nodes, more passes will translate possibly into a greater result. If you are very good pathologist, you can confidently tell you on-site this material is there, then most of the centers don't have that kind of issue. The second issue is that with this benefit profile, I mean, we are creating a EBUS DNA. EBUS DNA is our and then we also want to do it not from the biopsy, it's about the biopsy data quality procedure. Validating by mucosal granularity is hard. That is why we will make
you can't choose the same scope of it.
Yeah. So that's the question of what is what Mr. Vikram is saying is an isolated approach where we do use DNA and solve the procedure. I think that will limit your use.
Okay. I think we will have to, sorry, we will have to close it here because we call the session to a close and thank you very much. It was a very interesting
So we will finally move on to our last session and then we will have the hands-on as well. So already as we have gone through the journey of doing simple thoracoscopy with PK and following the EBUS and radials, we have some beautiful cases which we presented by Manoj sir. For the same session, session 2, I would like to invite our chairs for the evening as Dr. Mayank Mishra, Dr. Karan Madhan sir, I think you need to be back again, and Dr. Jaiswal. What about Dr. Mayank Mishra? We already had a word about it that he's the assistant professor in Rishikesh. Dr. Karan sir has already told his research and Dr. Jaiswal. Over to you, sir.
So, moving on to the next session, we have the pleasure of looking at wonderful cases which will be presented by Dr. Manoj Goel sir. He needs no introduction. He's the director and head of pulmonology at FMRI, and he has a number of publications and he directs the book as well. And he's doing all high-end advanced interventions at this center. Sir, please proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Bhargava and Dr. Rajeev, for inviting me here. And this session is just reaching out a little bit before lunch. And so I'll be speaking on some specific cases which will include some procedures and also some complications which I've encountered during this journey of EBUS in my practice. First, I'll talk about the transversal issues. We are seeing a major message. When you are able to reach the target or get more energy external region, which we generally do not recommend and is actually discouraged. This should be done only as a last resort. Another diagnostic modality has been to practice the diagnosis. So it is basically a message to you that is required with all other diagnostic issues of the body. But So first of all, this was a patient who was 31-year-old male. There was a known celiac disease, post-renal transplant, and he presented with a history of fever and weight loss for a month duration. And as you can see, he spent almost 8,000 area of 64 and getting countries in a very high state. So this patient we found in this necrotic liquor station 6. There and we went ahead with the transcarotid EBUS SLA in this patient. So this is the order, you can see that. And then the measurements were done, and we made around 2.5 centimeter. We got to go into the lymph and it was passed. The first pass of the needle penetrated this amount of the water, so we had to reposition the scope a little bit to find the minimum distance, and then we could go into the lymph node and then make agitations and collected samples. One thing important here is don't take on the vision. Keep the vision inside while making the agitation. And then we optimize sample of them. Don't is done in this patient. Because the academic increase of necrosis and the increase of positive information after the test. So this case was published in Journal of Robotic International Pulmonology. And then we did one such case in a pulmonary artery room, the transpulmonary EBUS to Again, you can see there is a complementary along the pulmonary artery. And in this case, also, the other diagnostic method was increasing. So this is the pulmonary artery. You can see infection concentrated with poplin nodes. And again, so the pulmonary artery, which is visible in the doctor, and the meeting was passed after the measurements. So, see the little fluid which comes to the artery and then into the node and then something is taken. So this is the view which comes to the artery and then the node and something is taken again it will begin to such a location. Now this is just a chance analysis which will be disturbed. And this patient will be operated presented with supraanophthalmic syndrome. Unfortunately, I don't have this kind of distinction which I missed and I didn't regret for that. So this is the diagnosis which is always and here you can see the diagnosis is now multi-way disappear and I find the lymph node mark is there for 3 centimeters. So you can see arch of the diagnosis. It's a beautiful mesmerizing picture. I mean, actually, we are astonished with this azygous arch. And it's a perhaps the only case where you can see the azygous, with its arch. And of course, with the first this patient through the azygous vein, and let's see whether it is jiggled through the arch of the azygous vein. Then we talk about the transbronchial axis to the EBUS guidance, and we can do it either with cryoprobe or we can do it with the forceps biopsy. So first talk about the cryoprobe. EBUS guided transbronchial probe cryobiopsy, which is called EBUS, the EBUS GPLMC. So this patient presented to the low-grade just 1 month. CT scan showed a large lymphoid station 7, and the multiple test was positive. So we used the 1.1 Passcode cryoprobe patient. This is the cryoprobe that you see. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then we first make a try using 19 days EBUS label. So I would like to draw your attention to this picture here. You can see the is going inside and creating a track. You can see the whole of that track. So this track is already clearly visible. And see this, this when we call the cryoprobe. So this cryoprobe is passed to the instrument channel of the EBUS system. And then the guided is input through the track. And then the thing is done for about 3 seconds. And then the probe is withdrawn. Drop in this probe. So we will get a good sense of the tissue there. So in this case, we got this is the endoscopy view. You can see the track there, volume. And then we try to pass through. Pulled out along with it. So this is the view. You can see the cryoprobe there, and this is the ice wall there. We got two specimens, 2 biopsy specimens, and this is the case of second criteria the process. Another case with multiple connected different started dispute problems, and patient had lymph nodes, 4R, 10R, and 7, which are visible with 10R and 7, and cryoprobe is passed through this joint channel after creating the track there with the EBUS label of 19 days. You can see this entering the lymph node. There is done. And the scope is put out along with the cryoprobe. You can see the tissue there. Frozen. And in this case, around 5 pieces. And this is the case of subproducts. You can see the non-advertised track in there. And here we can also see the carbon level back of the coming to the EBUS guided intradural forceps biopsy, which is called EBUS, and this was the case of presenting with 25-year-old male. He presented with slight tooth for 1 month. The CT chest showed multiple enlarged lymph excision, 2R, 4R, 7, 10R, and there were some few sentinel nodules in lighter peripheral light with the nose. Mindedness was also positive. And before CT station, you can see the 2R, 4R, and 7 and 10R lymph nodes. And this is the CT you can see it's necrotic lymph node and continuous uptake. And same track was created, and then this forceps is passed. So 1.4 mm forceps passed to the track. See the track already labeled there. Track and the forceps. Right, now open up. I treated around another attempt of the same from the frequency actually global result. Where you go, I take it out, another attempt, I take it, close, out. So in this case, you opted around 10-26, and this is how it will take after MS lines, after preparation, and this one piece of microtyping another case where the CP was very learned biopsy, learned muscle biopsy were done. This is right where we can back in the class vision, so right up on the process of vision. And same way, the deposits, especially with the liver cycle. So 5-6 specific for case and 2 case of only differential is covered for transmission. Now coming to the EBUS complications, so this is a case where the liver is activated. All the liver data is so, but after that the liver will decide like a classification for that possible. So we have the option of the patient. This is what actually happens. So this is like this is the label. So by the slider, the label is not moving at all. So this is what happens. So of course, it's published in the review. So this is the case of cytoplasmic pneumoconus caused by cytoplasmic consequence. This was a product which is not recognized in the background by cytoplasmic inflammatory consequence. The patient came back to us with after initial review. And there was a fresh collapse of confidence that the centers of the right very well confidence. And in this patient, we did a confidence with our two measures and this is the site. And there was a sinus operation, the sinus operation for and it led to, this nodular zone development in the rectal sector of the opposite part, the other problem spread, which is what we call it, of course, it can be the same symptom and specialty responded. So this is one of the complications of these reverse and reverse documents. Perhaps documented for the first time in the world, and you can see the video of that, where you can see these two modules and the sign of it there, clearly. This is a case where we observed a bleeding in the EBUS tract. This was a case we presented with the lobulated mass memory mediastinum. It was glutamate positive. The tumor was in subcaudal location in the right pulmonary artery in the right atrium. You can see this is a glutamate lobulated mass. This is a large mass which is there in the subcaudal region. And you can see that there's multiple collected blood vessels. In the subcaudal, paratracheal, and subcaudal region. So this is the tumor. And this was the initial density, 36.4 on the field of this mass, which was after doing the contrast, when it diffuse super surface, it just lit up. It was highly vascular tumor. So this patient, we did this EBUS, and this is how the EBUS is done. And you can find this blackish tract form, and then we apply a Doppler on that. You can see the beauty there inside the EBUS tract. So again, this is the first case in the world where you can see a breathable tract of the EBUS building. this is how it is. These generally find a whitish track after this basal insertion or education. Here is a darkish one. It will be, positive problem. So there is a feeling in the primary start of expansion. And that always shows the analytic background. There were dis-cohesive cells with plasmacytoid morphology. Cells had ovoid nuclei as expected in cytoplasm, so it was a case of paradigm. So I can present a couple of cases of video EBUS first, and this is the study which is happening in morphology. Video EBUS carried out isomedical vision with maximum dropability without missing right sheet. And we could apply 126 cases, that is 51.3% of cases out of 124 cases to video EBUS. And the diagnostic period was 17.6% or 81.6 cases. I have both survey sheets here. So here, the receptors at the right side. CT current biopsy. Anyway, so this is a post-liver transplant patient. He presented with fever and nodular bronchial coughing. The bicep was left of a lobe, which was 1 centimeter in size. So it was a bronchial coughing and difficult location. And previous segment of the left identified the baby even and then the cryobiopsy is two biopsy cases of the laziness. And again, in this case, a large GGO with enhancing margin. Any idea what this could be? Is a GGO here with enhancing margin. Anyways, so we did a video-guided biopsy in this patient. So this is how it is. Okay. So from the heterogeneous image, we get a topogram and blurred margins, and exclude the case of renal hemorrhage. In this case, also we are going to begin EBUS guided cryobiopsy. There is a post-renal transplant patient who presented to us with cryptococcal cellulitis in the abdomen, and we had these very small lesion, which is circulating lesion, which is subject of the right lower bone, and this is cryobiopsy section, two case of ulceration deformation. And this is a case with two small circular nodules, and it was a case of actually multiple myeloma. And this is a difficult location for the radiologist because here near the diaphragm there is not a local deep lung, so we generally find it difficult to sample. And we could identify and locate this thing. Again, you can see here orthogram image, the margins are blurred, temperature is capacity, two specimens. This indicates a multiple myeloma deposits. Then another case presented with fever and one of our staff nurse. So it is a large nodule, pneumatic kind of a nodule in the right upper lobe, posterior segment. And we did the video EBUS investigation, and the image was quite because it showed areas of necrosis. So this is the topic areas. We will EBUS image. And we will take that cryobiopsy. It will be just a problem out of the variety of samples of this patient. So I think I can do here, just say that EBUS variant, the variant EBUS have revolutionized the field of information for imaging. Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Yeah. Just a couple of questions I think that we open to the audience. So, interesting cases. So, I think my first question is on the cryobiopsy. But in a patient who's got an upfront necrotic lymph nodes, maybe a clinical profile consistent with TB or liver, when do you decide that you will do a cryobiopsy? Do you do it in all patients, or you will do it in a negative patient? How do you decide that this is a patient I would take for an intranodal cryobiopsy?
And EBUS was already done in previous institute. But he had come to us again, and we had done EBUS in this question first, because the way it was but then we were two holes there, two sides, and other sides were also clear, but it was not showing anything, no references, nothing, only nothing actually. So then you were forced to do it. So to me, as a last resort, not in every case.
Right, so I think as you said, it's in a redo setting in which the first procedure has been negative.
But yes, with this experience,
एक में आया था कि ऑडियो की प्रॉब्लम थी, एक जो चैट आई थी उसमें था ऑडियो की प्रॉब्लम है। सर वो माइक से थोड़ा सा दूर होकर बोल रहे हैं, इसलिए उनको ऑडियो की प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। दूसरे में पता नहीं क्या है।
So I think
बस यही था।
if you use a new 19-gauge needle, obviously adding to the cost. So do you reuse a 19-gauge needle for creating punctures in many patients?
Absolutely not. We do not reuse anything.
Okay.
Our cost is exorbitant. We do not reuse any needle, including the oxygen pipes, suction catheters, the suction tubes, everything is cut. Nothing is reused in the hospital.
So then that means that a 19-gauge needle for
cost is zero.
Over the diaphragm, sir, that's also single use.
It's a single use. You use it 1.1 disposable one, it's single use.
So you use it only once.
1.1 is single use.
I have encountered two cases of EBUS by consuming oral lymph 90 degree intubated. And it is because we used to keep that pattern. Sometimes force somebody to puncture this afora. Sometimes it's very difficult and there is no damage to the pancreas to take out what is suitable. Then two cases I have encountered vision of this. That was a good video.
So I have one question regarding the transvascular approaches that you described. A lot of people may be starting doing EBUS and a number of people are already doing it. So it should be an exception rather than a norm. So the question is, what standby precautions and active preventive measures that you take care of?
It's an excellent question. I mean, we do not recommend it. We discourage it. Right? Because it has to be done by most experienced person. You need to have all kinds of backups. And you need to know multidisciplinary in this patient involving with diabetes status. So this is what I do. So I do a little bit more as well as involving the radiologists, myself, the active people, the patients family, and other people like cardiologists, surgeon, or doctors that are there involved. So they are always a backup. The teams are always alarmed. If they are doing this procedure, the backup is there. Remember the kind of backup. In case it is required to do it. The problem is we don't report our complications. And these transvascular approaches have a potential risk of complications. You should not forget that. And particularly if there is an elderly patient or acute chronic wall or has got a calcification of wall, one should absolutely not do that. One has to be very careful. Because if you do not really recover, I do not recover, I don't want to do it. To be honest, I don't want to do it. So if you do a on-site, once you decide to do that, you have to come out with the idea. We do on-site psychology. So try to do minimum functions. The first function will show, minimum parts. The first you decide to do, then you want to complete. Try to clear your documentation very fast as well.
Cases, I think the message is that the cases which Dr. Goyal has shown you with his degree of experience, these are kind of cases which you consider in super selected patients when no other, like a transvascular procedure and no other sampling approach is possible after a careful discussion of the respiratory profile, preferably in a tertiary care setting, where you have a data of cardiovascular people doing it. There is a more than 100 patient series paper on transvascular procedures. It has shown that these are reasonably safe procedures. But given the fact that even in one patient, if you get a major complication without a surgical backup, it will be difficult to manage. So I think that's important.
I think we can close the session now.
Thank you, respected chairperson. A wonderful lecture, sir. Before we break for lunch, we just have last panel discussion where we have Dr. Sajid will be moderating the session. And to invite the panelists and it was easy for the surgery. The panelists are Dr. Himeji, Dr. Virotam Tovar, Dr. Shari, and Dr. Pratibha, Dr. Nishan, Prahan, and Dr. Deenam Shah. I've already spoken about Dr. Himeji. Dr. Tomar is he's one of the pioneers in EBUS in northern India, and he's been practicing interventional neurology in Meerut since long. And he's also the president of National Medical Organization Meerut, and he's the past president of the Meerut branch. Dr. Patavi, you already know very well, and Dr. Himeji is over to you, Dr. Sajid. I think you can come here. Very nice. And the panel can be good.
So we have had a very good session, other two sessions on radial EBUS and EBUS TBNA, and most of the technical aspects have been made clear to the audience. So we are just going to discuss certain aspects which can help in increasing the yield of EBUS TBNA first, and then we'll go on to radial EBUS. And the format will be that I'll try to stick to the evidence, mostly coming from randomized controlled trials. And if there is no evidence, you can take the opinion of the panelists, whether in their experience a particular technique or technical aspect can improve the yield of these procedures, and whether there are any particular patient-specific characteristics which can help decide us whether to use a particular instrument or a particular technique of doing it. So my first question would be to Dr. Virotam Tovar, that whether sedation, so we are first going to take up EBUS TBNA. So whether the mode of sedation, moderate sedation versus general anesthesia, does it make a difference in the yield?
I think there is no difference in the use of sedation. Even in different studies also showed that local anesthesia and mild sedation is equally good like anesthesia.
Yeah, so there has been an RCT published in the Blue Journal in 2015 which showed that moderate sedation works as well as general anesthesia in case of EBUS TBNA. My next question would be whether size matters, the needle size matters. So there are different size needles available for EBUS TBNA, including 25 gauge, which is very uncommonly available, 21 gauge, 22 gauge, and now the 19 gauge. So 4 different needles are available. So whether the size of the needle matters, Dr. Himeji. You don't need a larger needle to increase the yield in case of does it give a better yield? Does the 19 gauge give a better So what the evidence has shown is that if you, so there have been RCTs comparing 25 gauge and 22 gauge, no difference in yield, 21 and 22, again meta-analysis of several RCTs, no difference in the yield. With the 19 gauge, there is some hope that it might give a better amount of sample. Whether it adds up to a better yield is not known. We have an ongoing RCT at our center, which we are where we are comparing 19 gauge and 22 gauge needle in sarcoidosis patients. So I think we will have the results by next year. So otherwise there is no RCT data to suggest that 19 gauge will be definitely better, but only observational data that it gives you a better sample. The amount of sample is more than what you get with 22 gauge.
That 19 gauge benign concept more for the negative, no.
So my next technical aspect to discuss would be the finer parts, like the use of suction during EBUS TBNA and the use of the stillet, whether they make a difference in the yield.
Dr. Said. We practice what I think every mentioned in the guidance. I personally would try to give first and second sample. And if they are not ready, I want a better sample at third or the fourth one. If it's a fourth one, then the last sample would be the section. And it's not related to what section I'm in, I will be at the section. That's not the question.
Sorry, I have to rush through things because there are a lot of aspects to discuss and I just have 30 minutes for two procedures. So RCT wise, no difference with or without the use of steroid, with or without the use of suction. But as Dr. Nishant has already pointed out that you can always modulate. So once you apply suction, if you are getting a very bloody aspirate, you can remove the suction for the next pass. But suppose you are not getting a good aspirate, then you can again put on the suction. So you can modulate between your passes. So the next thing is ROSE. Whether ROSE helps in increasing the yield. It has its own advantages, but whether it increases the yield or not, Dr. Pratap.
There's been no data to suggest it goes there are obvious advantages people using road for that. But the evidence is so advantages would be one is about try you get an immediate feedback and you know what to do with the subsequent passes because the number of passes might come down. So that would be the most important thing. In Indian context, if you can tank down a beam export or a culture because of the fact that we're seeing malignancies, right, eventually diverting towards a lot of subsequent passes go through. So you reduce the cost of those tests. Those are the only things. But you need to be having a very robust diagnostic. So there might be cases where there can be a false positive, false negative data. So if you have a greatest possibility correlating with the diagnostic thing, then you would use that into reducing your further costs.
With sarcoid, where we are planning a TCAP might be avoided. Also, we are used to doing it because it gives you some information and it gives some differentiation between sarcoidosis and supercommon TCAP. But if you've got non-pediatric granulomas, non-necrotic granulomas from the lymph nodes, then possibly you can avoid a TCAP procedure, especially the duration of the procedure also.
Patient becomes hypoxic or intubation chances decrease with doses
Dr. Pravi, another question to you. Regarding the newer core vaccines, like the acquired median and the pro-code median, any improvement in the use of this?
Logically, yeah, it looks fascinating. The forms coming out and seeing it not being translated into tactical and monitoring. So at this point, there is no evidence, so it looks logically correct.
Pro-code we had an RCT of 100 patients in sarcoid didn't show a statistically significant difference compared to 22 days. Similar is the thing with acquire. So I don't think there's an RCT yet, but no clear difference. Dr. Pratika, the role of elastography during EBUS and whether it helps improve the yield.
I don't think so. Once it is not available in all the systems, it started with 10 days and now being required by Olympus. But it hardly makes any difference to the yield. And it only when there are multiple nodes, it helps us to select which is better, or preferably when we have several nodes, we can just, with the help of elastography, we can bank on 2-3 stages. That's all.
Helps to select the nodes you want to puncture. So, for example, if you're suspecting malignancy, go to the hardest nodes, those which are blue on elastography, and also the areas within the nodes. So, the blue areas may give you a better rate of malignant cells. So, we have seen this mini forceps biopsy in the previous two lectures. So, what is the role of mini forceps? Does it increase the yield, or what is the evidence till now, Dr. Shah?
We have used it for a couple of patients. We actually use the medical biopsy. We just put the pediatric process. So, there's no evidence to suggest that there is an increased yield of that. But in certain cases like a lymphoma or suspecting a sarcoidosis, we think that probably the QPN material is not enough on your channel, then you may attempt to do a
We have seen in the previous lecture, which Dr. Goel clearly pointed out that these tools, the mini forceps and the cryoprobe, are to be used with great caution because, especially in necrotic mode, they can lead to fistula formations also. Karan also pointed out well. So they are to be used very carefully, especially in patients who we are unable to find a diagnosis on needle aspiration alone. Non-necrotic, non-tuberculous nodes. Generally, in malignancies, these additional tools do not help because the yield of EBUS TBNA with the usual needles is good enough. In benign disorders, as Dr. Shah pointed out, sarcoidosis and suspected lymphoma, that these tools like cryobiopsy and mini forceps biopsy can help. Mini forceps, there is no RCT to suggest whether it increases the yield or not. So coming to, maybe finally coming to the cryobiopsy thing, Dr. Himeji, the use of the 1.1 millimeter cryoprobe for EBUS TBNA, whether it improves the data. Have you used it? Not for the nodal. Okay. But you are doing a lot of biopsies on the way.
So yeah, we are using 1.1 cryoprobe for internal biopsy, and it is done under a setting where the patient is always present in a situation, and we do it with the rose feedback also, and we use the technically, I think Manoj has gone through all the techniques. The most important thing is to avoid if there is if doctor is showing a lot of results or if there is necrosis or unavailable. So these are things that you need to avoid. And if you have a frank diagnosis, there is no point in going further. But under a research protocol, you could do that. But again, you'll have to avoid these two situations. If you have a pus or if there is a lot of necrosis, you would like to avoid these areas. And we do a similar thing, having a previous track by a needle, which can be used as an entry point for 1.1.
And finally, we have the addition of EBUS BFNA, which we already discussed in Karan's lecture, that if you add it over EBUS TBNA, in case of lung cancer staging, it improves the rate significantly, as has been proven by randomized controlled trials. But as standalone techniques, they are equally yielding. So the diagnostic yield is similar. If you have nodes 4L, 7, you can access them with EBUS BFNA. On the other hand, if you have 4R, 7, and an interlobar node, you can use EBUS TBNA. The yields, the diagnostic yield for just making a diagnosis, for example, sarcoid, TB, or malignancy, yields are going to be similar. Any other aspect which the audience proposes to discuss to increase the yield of EBUS TBNA? No, I'm just asking the audience whether any other aspect which we need to discuss which can increase the yield of EBUS TBNA. Yes.
So how many nodes do you all sample so that at the end of the process we have the diagnosis? Is there a common understanding that we all follow?
Yes, so if you are
in
doing,
benign or in malignant?
so if you are doing it with those can always guide you whether you need further passes or not. So if you have diagnostic material on those, your pathologist is very happy with, then you are done for the diagnosis. If you have a cancer for which molecular typing will be needed, you need to go ahead with one or two more passes. If you don't have those, then sample each node with 3 passes at least. In case of sarcoid, make again 3 passes from each node and sample at least 2 nodes in sarcoid. Correct. Yes, so we had a small observational study that we have published recently. So if you are going ahead with only slides, you might get a lower yield. But if you combine slides with a cell block and with a liquid LBC also, then you might get a better yield. All these procedures might just add a few more percentage of additional yield to your sampling. So it's a good idea to at least make a cell block, talk to your pathologist, and make them process the cell block, because that will contain a lot of material which can be centrifuged and finally processed.
Another technique is the panning technique. You can do the same lymph node with different directions. You can go and get it similar to this. And when you functioning or when you are doing the jabbing, the lymph node, another technique is go fast and come slow. Go fast, come slow. This is one technique I have applied personally. And
the point is send for molecular testing for mycobacteria. So do a gene expert test so that will definitely add to your yield, because not always will you find AFBs in your aspirates. Dr. Goyal. The fourth issue. Dr. Patel, would you like to take that first?
Better course. I just want to say, if you put suction, it doesn't increase the yield, but you get better core samples, you get better scenarios.
It depends on what core is. We get a clot with cells trapped in it, and which is loosely termed as a core. You get it in almost about half of the time. Again, it depends on the nodal characteristics, it's done blood lessons, and maybe on. So if you get that, you just push. I mean, all these threads, that the red color threads you get, you can you push it in and prepare it like put it in a silver or prepare it in as a get a wax state and so on. So if that is called as a core, yes, you could get it by routine technique. It's supposedly higher in procores or in 19 guards needles of Olympus or in acquired needles. But again, whether that translates into a meaningful diagnostic thing is still not.
I just wanted to add regarding the additional these forceps biopsy which can be used for needle function and sampling the lymph node. If I think the enlarged lymph node is the only pathology or accessible pathology you are finding in a particular patient, and the pathologist says that you want to do molecular testing, so probably EBUS giving the sampling would be a bit less in amount to help the pathologist, and if you have I think availability of forceps biopsy, you can do that.
That has been more or less being put to rest, that EBUS giving a sample that usually sufficient. And that's what I think surgeon made is knowing that if you are doing molecular testing, maybe another 1 or 2 passes to get a little more patient. But otherwise, more or less, most of the time they are adequate. The pathologist must know that he needs dual lung reflex and PD-L1, etc., so that he preserves the sample and uses it judiciously. Another point that I wanted to make was that when you are handling the sample, so one thing is that for adequacy, there's a paper which says that for adequacy, even a 2 centimeter thread, the presence of anthropotic pigment within the material, certain amount of more than 40 lymphocytes when you're doing the biopsy. These are also tells you that you've got adequacy. So many times you may not see a pathology, but if you got enough of these, 2 or 3 things are met, then possibly you have done enough. And you don't need to keep on puncturing the node again. That is just one point.
Something on sample processing, because this is, I think, a neglected aspect when people start to do because you find that you have just made my slides, one sample for gene expert and things are over. So what we realized is that with time we started to routinely send our aspirates in the formalin for the way you process your cell block is also very different. Whether you just put that clot tissue in a formalin and it goes to the histopathology lab, they pick out that and process it, or solution it is centrifuged and the sample is dedicatedly does that. These are very, very neglected issues of EBUS TBNA, and every center who is doing EBUS TBNA must be knowing how the pathologists are sampling, doing the samples and prepare cell blocks.
Can we proceed to the next? Yeah. Radial EBUS also. So we proceed to radial EBUS now. So my first question would be a lot of questions for Dr. Hindeji this time, because he has worked with Dr. Masahide Oki, who has performed a lot of these RCTs on yields in radial EBUS. So the first question, the first RCT, that whether guide sheet helps RCT wise, there is evidence that it helps. It helps to increase yield significantly. But how to choose where to use a guide sheet and where we can do without a guide sheet during a training? Yes.
We use versus okay. Yes.
So how do you select between thin EBUS with guide sheet versus an ultra thin which will not have the guide sheet? How do you decide whether you want to use a thin scope, a bronchoscope with a guide sheet versus an ultra thin scope, 3 mm scope without the guide sheet? How do you decide in the preparation? So there are two options in a particular patient. If you are performing radial EBUS guided procedures, you can use a 4 millimeters scope, which is a thin bronchoscope with a guide sheet. The other option is to use an ultra thin bronchoscope, a 3 millimeter scope without a guide sheet. So how do you decide which one to use and whether it makes a difference in the yield?
In our institute, 4 millimeter scope we usually use, and if we could reach the duration, we change system scope to UT. But CT analysis before examination right now presented it seems like very difficult to reach the duration. In such case, we select UT at first.
And Meji has clearly pointed out, it was there in his presentation also. So if you look at the randomized control trial evidence, ultra thin performs better than a thin bronchoscope with a guide sheet. But as he has elaborated, that it's all about the access to the nodule. So if you are able to access the nodule with a thin scope, that is a 4 millimeter scope with a guide sheet, it's good enough if you are able to reach that nodule. Sometimes the nodule is small and very peripheral, where you might need an ultra thin bronchoscopy. So in his center, what they practice is they start with a thin scope, and if they are unable to reach the nodule, they'll go with an ultra thin 3 millimeter bronchoscope to reach the nodule. So if you have both those scopes, then your yield will be better than if you don't have an ultra thin. But that does not mean that if you don't have an ultra thin in your center, you stop doing radial EBUS. That is not right, because even without the ultra thin, you'll get a yield of about 60-65%. You can always go into the guide sheet approach. Then the issue with virtual bronchoscopic navigation, Dr. Patali, does it add to the yield? What are the advantages of using a virtual bronchoscopic navigation? Because in the past, during RCTs, it has been shown that it adds to the yield. What is your experience?
Okay, so it's unfortunately probably in our hands we will not doing it as well as where RCT is done. We don't find it as useful as an additional tool. It gives you fascinating pictures. It gives you an understanding of how you take the thing into the closer to the nodule and all that. It gives you a good virtual bronchoscopic anatomy. It helps you in good orientation. But if you don't have that, also it is fine. Look at the RCTs, it shows that a BBM improves need in a nodule which is less than 2 centimeters. It doesn't have as good between 2 and 3 centimeters. We don't see any such difference. With a very good understanding of the CT anatomy and with the idea of a three-dimensional about the access, and if you have enough tools like the radial probe along with fluoroscope, you think that in our hands it is not being shown to be higher. But look at the data, doesn't use any meter, it has a higher yield if you use a medium.
Varun and Ninder, would you like to make a comment on virtual bronchoscopic navigation?
Audible now? Yeah. So I think peripheral nodule sampling is a test of patience for a bronchoscopist. Okay. Now, if you have a centimeter or sub-centimeter nodule, I mean, it may be time consuming. You may have to have all the necessary bronchoscopic armamentarium, including a thin, ultra thin, all those things. then to be able to have the patient under a stable, our preference would be for a GA. Because in our hands, what we felt is if it's a long procedure, peripheral nodule, patient is coughing, vision is going off, bleed is happening, I mean, it can be challenging. That's at least our experiences. Now for that, you need to organize that time, then get the planning. So I mean, to be very frank, we are not doing it to that degree. I think, very frank, Dr. Images was this. Because a dedicated nodule center who does all this to that degree is one who can answer you this question very clearly.
What Karan wants to clearly say is that planning a procedure using the CT images and putting them into a virtual bronchoscopic navigation software is a very time-consuming and tedious task, especially if they are difficult to access nodules where there is no CT bronchus sign. So if you are able to do that kind of a planning, the path to the nodule is better prepared for you even before you start the procedure. So there is a better chance that you will hit the nodule in a shorter time during the procedure. If you don't have VPN, you can still look at the CT, plan it as Dr. Imaji has already pointed out, that you have a mental plan that after you go into a particular segment, then which sub-segment you enter next, and then the sub-segment. So if you keep on going like that, you will need to have a trial and error method, because if one of the sub-segments you may not find the nodule, then you go to another sub-segment, and if you don't have an ultra-thin bronchoscope, sometimes it is all blind. After we reach maybe the 4th or 5th generation bronchus, then the bronchoscope will not go further. Then it's all angulation of the scope which will help you guide the radial probe or the further instruments like forceps, etc. So VPN just helps in the planning and in reducing the duration of the procedure and sometimes accuracy, because the duration will also finally lead to finally quitting the procedure if you are not finding the nodule in some 20-30 minutes or so. Karan?
The planning phase, other is the sampling phase. So planning is fine. You did that 2 days before, 1 day before, that's fine. But something is real time. Your bronchoscope is integrated into the VPN system, and as you are moving, the bronchoscope, you get real time. That requires another experienced operator to handle the console, and believe me, it is a very, very difficult task to match that. So I think the advantage of doing real time distal nodule is probably overstated.
Yeah, in our experience also, we find that it's almost impossible to follow we keep coming back to you reach the secondary carina and then back to the carina to sort of lose the track. Because it's extremely cumbersome. You can't blame the person who's assisting you, because either you use the mouse or you use the arrows is extremely cumbersome, and it doesn't keep up.
So I think some of the audience are not able to understand what we are discussing. So the virtual bronchoscopic navigation is just a software wherein you put in the CT DICOM data. It can be used in 2 ways. One is that you just make a route to the nodule, an endobronchial route to the nodule, and you use it as your guide during the procedure. The other way that you can use it is real time, that when you are putting the bronchoscope through the segments and subsegments, the VPN software will guide you by comparing your endobronchial images with the software-based images. So it can guide in real time also, and you can do it without real time also. Right. Dr. Jinam Shah, the use of fluoroscopy during radial EBUS. So is it okay? So we just have 5 minutes. Use of fluoroscopy during radial EBUS, does it help to increase the yield?
We have not been doing but when I was with Dr. we used to do fluoroscopy only for regions which are small. If you are not really sure whether you are going to reach to just the region to itself. So whenever the regions are with parameter distance, for better access to that region, you need to use it so that many times you don't understand which segment you are going. That reason you use it so that at least you get nearer to the segment, then you use your radial probe to actually guide it to a proper segment. Coming to the yield, definitely I think that there are RCTs which are saying that with fluoroscopy your yield goes up. But I'm not sure when you're using a BBN and you're using an ultra thin bronchoscope whether a fluoroscopy would really help you.
So there has been a recent trial where they have used an ultra thin with BBN, and then they have randomized it to with or without fluoroscopy. So you are right, there was no difference in the yield. So fluoroscopy is not required if there is a proper BBN planning and an ultra thin. But as we discussed in our setup, BBN, nobody is really happy with the BBN. So possibly fluoroscopy will still help. It also helps in finding out whether your forceps is opening properly or not. The disadvantage is that if you are using it in a uniplanar mode, then you are not very sure that whether the forceps is right inside the lesion or it may be just above or just below it. It may look like it is inside the lesion, but if it is a uniplanar flow, the forceps may be just above or below it, but it seems that it is within the lesion. Any comments by Himeji, the use of fluoroscopy?
I was just trying to add on to it. We don't have BBN and other instruments, but yes, when I was training with sir, we've done a lot of cases where we use in most of the cases we do, and it's very helpful actually. EBUS was our. We use both of them together. Even here, yeah, that's it.
The thing is that fluoroscopy is there in all hospitals. So one should not think that you don't have a fluoroscope, you just have to go to the fluoroscope so it doesn't come to you. Yeah, so you have to manage it, but the fluoroscope is there everywhere.
The next issue to discuss would be cryobiopsy, which is very important in the radial scenario. So whether cryobiopsy during a radial EBUS direct procedure improves the yield. Okay, Nadapada.
We think it improves the yield. If there is a so there is a bronchus sign, again we do it anyway, but the biopsies are good. If the bronchus sign is not there, the lesion is all around. We think that it's either a needle or a cryo would help in because logically it will shear some of the difference, so you will have a better vision. So yield wise, we think it will definitely improve, especially in the non-type 1 applications. The issue, the flip side of a cryobiopsy is a bleed, obviously, and of course it is a little bit more of a chemotherapy. So that is something that will have to. There are own ways of handling the bleed. One is difference between the TBLC bleed and a local thing with a cryobiopsy bleed of a local thing is probably different. The difference is the following: you have a better lung and a better respiratory capacity for these people because apart from that local lesion, you don't have anything. So they might tolerate a bleed for a while, unlike a TBLC bleed where people have already adjusted to one bleed and their results are very poor. So you could probably do away with routine bronchoscopy. It's useful to have a bonding, or it is also it's useful to have a Fogarty preservation. So Fogarty is, you don't always use a routine bronchoscopy for the supraglytic diabetes.
Questions here: what is the size of the cryoprobe that you use for peripheral pumping lesions, and whether you put a prophylactic balloon in place while taking the pipe, or you just keep it with your pyro side, or you insert it inside the patient and inflate it after taking the pipe. Always.
So if the lesion is accessible by that the smaller sheath, and if the lesion is closer to that, and if you use a 1.1, we use a 1.1 cryoprobe. Well, since the sheath is still there, we don't need any other blockers where the sheath is good enough. You can actually put in a 1.1 in and out, and so you do it multiple times. If it is very peripheral, we will not use a guide sheet. We will use the radial probe thing and the fluoro, and we might use the 1.7. So in this case, we will be prepared with the Fogarty usually sometimes insert, but many times we do get away by having it with us so that if there is
Cryoprobe, evidence-wise, there has been some difference with the cryoprobe, although it didn't reach statistical significance in one of the RCTs. But they did a subgroup analysis. They looked at eccentric lesions. So you might have seen in the presentation on radial EBUS that the lesion might be on one side of the probe, or it might be all around the probe. So if it is all around the probe, it is called a concentric lesion, and there a forceps biopsy and brushing, washings, etc. can give you a very good yield, but if it's an eccentric lesion, evidence says that it will give you a better yield with cryobiopsy. And other thing is that if the lesions are smaller, less than 2 centimeters, then also cryoprobe improves the yield of the radial EBUS procedure. So,
भैया माइक थोड़ी चलो कौन सा सर बोल रहे हैं
it's only in the subgroup of eccentric lesions and smaller lesions like less than 2 centimeters, it may perform better, but you have to be careful of the bleed and you have to have a prophylactic balloon in place. So, last two issues to discuss. One is electromagnetic navigation. So previously there was a lot of cry about it, but it's an expensive instrument. We have not got even a single instrument in India. So the role of electromagnetic navigation in today's world, especially when robotic bronchoscopy has come in, so whether it is work, whether YouTube problem, whether it is cost effective.
Your network bandwidth is low. सर एक्चुअली पता है क्या आपके सिस्टम जो है ना तो यहाँ से कनेक्टेड है काफी टाइम से आपके सिस्टम में तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं आ रही है आपके सिस्टम में लास्ट टाइम भी आपके सिस्टम में
It all depends on the selection of the nodules.
सिस्टम में प्रॉब्लम आ रही है मैं जूम में प्रॉब्लम आ रही है
accessible, smaller nodules, more powerful nodules. So EMN again is a technology which guides your path of the bronchoscope real time by an electromagnetic field that is created around the patient, and the marker is sensitive to that field. So you can really trace your bronchoscope in the peripheral areas where you cannot see it. But I think practically it is not there in India. I don't think it will come to India because of the cost. And now something has superseded it, which is robotic bronchoscopy. And any exhibition of robotic bronchoscopy. Can you make a comment on robotic? So I'll just give a brief on that. So robotic bronchoscopy, there have been recent observational studies. A very recent study by Lonnie Yarmus and group, wherein they have compared robotic bronchoscopy with electromagnetic navigation, and so they have found that robot performs much better, almost 80% yield. But the curious thing in that particular analysis is that the EMN, which is supposed to perform good and it gives a yield of 80% in other studies where EMN was the hero. In this study, EMN is giving a yield of only 45%. So it is very surprising that when you are comparing EMN with robot, the robot gives an 80% yield, the EMN comes down to 45%. So I didn't understand how it happened. Yeah, so a lot of if you look at a lot of radial EBUS studies, what happens is whenever a new technology is tested, it's not the yield in the new technology that increases, it is the yield in the older technology that falls. I don't know how it happens. So, the last thing is that people have used robot with cryobiopsy, because cryobiopsy has some promising data that it might increase yield in smaller lesions, eccentric lesions. So they are now using robot with cryo. They have got an 80 to 90% yield now. So cone beam is another thing which we are not going to discuss. So cone beam CT guidance is another way that you can hope to increase the yield. But I think all these technologies are very costly for our setting right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I think let's give them a big hand. The whole panel has actually, completely discussed everything right there. We had a delightful, pre-lunch thing, and we must give a big hand to the delegates and all these people because they have sat here throughout, and the lunch has been delayed by an hour. But see, we are going to have a hands-on in the afternoon, so my request is that we have a quick lunch. And try to get here, I want 3:10 should be free, so be here in that time. Some important announcement how to get there. Otherwise, you won't be able to navigate to the lunch.
We need a robot then again. So there are 3 or 4 rules which I also discussed before sending off for lunch. The important part is there's a dedicated lift because we wanted some beautiful picturesque views after so many heavy sessions. Let's have a beautiful lunch at a view where you can see Mussoorie and where you can enjoy the city. So it's on the 4th floor. My team from Max will help you across. We have a dedicated lift for you. Once you go out, They'll guide you through, and there is a separate lift which goes to the fourth floor and to the other area where you have the lunch being served. And we'll be back. There are 6 stations. Each station has a specific senior faculty. We have on station 1, we have Dr. Sajal Nishant, Chetan, Varun. And in EBUS scope, we have Inderpal, Dr. Anurag, Dr. Sushant, Dr. Lokesh. Whereas we have Dr. Patabi, Virotan, Abhijit, Sir, and Abhijit Ahuja Mayank. Okay. And station 4, okay, sir. So I am safe. So, medical thoracoscopy, we have Dr. Jayachandra, Dr. Jagdish Rawat sir, Dr. Gaurav Singhal, and IPC, Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Pratibha, Dr. Mani. So, this is the split analysis of group 1 to 6. These are the names I have with me. I have the list, but I think we can go in for a lunch. We are meeting here, back here, at 3:15. You'll have table side, you'll have 6 different stations set, 5th one is there. So, I think it's going to help you. Please go in and enjoy the views and take beautiful pictures and have them. Sorry for the 1 hour delay. Thank you very much.